The Harding Center has attractive, affordable apartments. The Harding Center is a senior housing community open to everyone 55 years old or better. There are several apartments available at this time, and all utilities are included in the rent. The Harding Center is the former Harding Hotel. It is an historical landmark and a place that should be seen by all. The Harding Center office hours are Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m., and their phone number is 740-375-4602. The telephone number again, 740-375-4602. The Harding Center in beautiful downtown Marion. Check it out. This is Scott Spears, and today we've got a very special episode of Scott Spears Now, possibly one of the most unique episodes we've ever had. Have you ever heard of somebody going from a leading lady in Hollywood, starring opposite Elvis Presley, to a nun, a Roman Catholic nun? Well, it's happened, and that's the story of Mother Dolores Hart, who has authored a book, The Ear of the Heart, an actress's journey from Hollywood to holy vows. Mother Dolores Hart joins us now with her very intriguing tale. What was the king of rock and roll life? What's it like to be an actress? What's it like to be the only nun to vote for the Academy Awards? What's it like to be in a convent? So much to talk about with Mother Dolores Hart. Right now on Scott Spears Now. This is Scott Spears, and today we have a most interesting story, that of Reverend Mother Dolores Hart, an actress who made her film debut in 1957 alongside Elvis Presley, and then in 1963 became a full-fledged nun. What an interesting life she must have led. Along the way, she's done all kinds of interesting things, and we are so glad to have her via Skype today. Reverend Mother, how are you?
Very good, thank you. I appreciated your introduction, but I just wanted you to know I was a postulant in 1963. It took me 7 years to be a full-fledged nun.
Now, what is a postulant for those of us who are not heavily involved in the religion, Catholic religion?
A postulant in, well, I would say in our terminology, means one who postulates, one who asks. And to ask, in that sense, a postulant would be one who is asking to enter. And a person enters the abbey with with part of the habit, with just the dress and a small veil, and that person is a postulant for 1 year. And then, God willing, things work out all right, then you become a novice. And I think a novice in any profession, you know, is one who is beginning, a beginner, a learner. Then after another 2 years, you can take a time called commitment, where you commit yourself to the abbey, and you commit through a very particular my commitment was through birds. You probably hear some of them as we continue our talk this afternoon. And then the next is very serious, because the next time you make vows, and it's first vows, and that I did in 1963, 1966. And then final vows I made in 1970. So now I've taken you through the whole scope.
Yeah, a long process. Is it usually that long for a nun? Is that typical?
In our order, it is, because contemplative life is such a change from what a person has been doing. It demands a vow of stability, a vow of congregatio to change, and then a vow of chastity. And so that's very serious. It asks a great inner discovery of oneself. It asks for most importantly, some discovery of God in a way that allows you to give yourself to Him totally in this way.
Now, I don't...
Pardon me.
Oh, no problem. And I don't want to harbor this point, but I think most people watching this would probably say the hardest thing to give up, in their opinion, would be sex through chastity. Was that hard for you?
Well, you see, in the beginning, am I losing you?
No, we're still here.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing a variety of different things here that don't look like you. You see, what happens is that you discover that sex is usually only understood in the genital dimension of creating and some kind of a response of a momentary pleasure, or a pleasure for longer than that, but it's strictly geared to that level of sex in which most young people are attracted to one another, and older people too. I'm not to say that it's just us kids, but sexuality has a transcendent capacity of experience, and that comes, I think, when, for example, you see a great piano player and you see his hands touch the keys. That's a sexual action that can be more thrilling, more moving than any of the less, let's say, intense ways of a woman singing. A woman carrying her child can be, in her arms, can be as sexual for her as creating the child.
So
sexuality has it has many levels of intensity that are to be explored.
Right, I think a lot of people would agree with you. So is that to say, since 1963, you have been celibate?
Yes.
And has that ever been a problem for you personally?
I think it's, when you say a problem, you mean, do you see, the sexuality for me always related to a person. There wasn't sexuality. I didn't really experience or understand or know the meaning of the word as something that awakened me until I saw someone or was with someone who awakened my sexuality. And so in the monastery, your sexuality is awakened in a completely new way.
Very well.
In a way that is very hard to explain, because you're coming from a whole different element. I imagine if you would ask an astronaut How was his sexuality awakened when he first saw the Earth from the moon?
Yeah, it's very well put, I think. Reverend Mother, I want to go back to the beginning of your life here. Why did you choose acting? Why was that a vocation you wanted to get involved with?
I think it was very simple, because my daddy was picked up by a talent scout when I was practically in my mother's arms. He looked, let's say he was a very handsome, younger Clark Gable when Gone with the Wind had just come out. And so they went off to Hollywood, and my grandmother kept me in Chicago because they all felt it would be better for me not to be transported there until things settled down. And by the time I would say I was 3, my mother brought me to Hollywood, Beverly Hills, where she lived. And I think that the painfulness of that venture was that my mother and father did get a divorce by the time I was 6 years old. And the agreement then was for me to go back and have my school with my grandparents and come to California in the summers. Well, with my grandfather, he was a projectionist in a theater, and from that from that standpoint, he always would take me to the theater every time, maybe once or twice a month. Sometimes it even got to be every weekend, to help him because he liked to sleep during the films. And my job was to tap him when the reel was coming to the end so that he could go and change the reels. Never put on the sound though, so all I could see was actually the film being done. Now this is answering your question in a long, drawn-out way, I'm afraid. But you see, I always wanted to find where my daddy was and to do what he did. And then when I was with my grandfather, that only intensified my desire, because I told him very clearly I wanted to be a movie star. And he used to say to me, "You'll be better than any of them. I've seen them all, honey, and I trust and know what I'm talking about." Well, when you have a mentor like that give you the courage and anticipation of something when you're just a kid, 9 years old, you do come to believe in yourself more than if you were in another context.
Very interesting. Reverend Mother, a lot of people find acting to be very difficult to get in. They find the rejection of it very difficult. How was it for you?
Well, I can't say that I felt the rejection of it, because I was completely lucky, to say the least. How many kids did they look for to play opposite Elvis? I wish I could tell you, but I'm sure there was a long line of young, beautiful blondes, and some far more equipped than I to, and I was chosen. That was an amazing gift of the studio heads, of the people who saw the film, and of the Lord who had my vocation in mind. So then I was given a 7-year contract, offered that by Hal Wallace, very year that we did Loving You. So I jumped for that. And to think now that I had a possibility of of the next 7 years opened to me by Mr. Wallace. And I didn't have to go pounding on doors to get a job to get it. That was amazing. Well, every time I think about it, I think how fortunate I was.
Tell me.
I do know my friends who were with me, the actresses and actors that I lived with. I could see the hell they went through just when one job didn't work out. I mean, they thought they were damned. Truly, actors have a tremendous problem with that.
Tell me about Elvis Presley.
Well, I met a young Elvis, an Elvis who was about 21. I was 17 going on 18, and he had his gaggle of guys that traveled around with him playing guitars and singing, and I mean, he was having a ball when I met him, just discovering himself too, because it was his second film, his first Technicolor film, his first real musical. And I think that the young man that I met was extraordinarily talented, but not up his own sleeves about, who am I? He wasn't somebody who made his home front the only thing that existed. Everybody around him did, but he was a man that talked a lot about his mother, about his love of the Lord, and when we would go to what was the name of the King Creole? That was it. That was the second film.
Yeah, Loving You.
Loving You was the first one. But when we went to King Creole, by that time, he was very interested in becoming a fine actor, because he told me, I want to be the next Jimmy Dean. Mm-hmm. He loved the film that we were doing, and he loved the fact that it had a dignity, and it offered him the chance to play a guy with some real feelings, with a real response for his women, not just singing the guitar to them. And I think if he had had different agents, they might have saved his life.
What could you tell us about Elvis Presley that we do not know?
I wish I knew.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that I have already said to many people that when we were in King Creole, we had to wait sometimes in the hotel rooms. He would go and get the Gideon Bible from the shelf and come over and open it up and say, "What's this mean to you, Dolores?" Miss Dolores. He always called me Miss Dolores. And then he would speak one of the texts in the Bible and give his impression of it. Or he would ask me to do the same. I think he was a man who was very much in love with the Lord Jesus. He said at one time when a group of kids were out screaming, "I want to see the King, I want to see the King," and he opened the door and said, "The King is the Lord. The King is not Elvis Presley."
What do you feel happened to, oh, I know you weren't with him later on in life. What do you feel happened? Was it just the people who surrounded him, do you think, took over on him?
I was also the niece of Mario Lanza, and I saw my Uncle Mario when he was a young man, first in love with Anne Blythe in the movies. And then I saw the man in the casket when he was only 39. I do think that the people who surround us, if we're popular, if we have fame, especially if we have a lot of money, especially money, because greed runs so many men's hearts and women. And I think that the combination of those elements can change a person's outlook. Anything can.
Right. Do you think in the particular case with your uncle and possibly Elvis, is it the people around them who maybe bring the money to the forefront? They feel they can make money off this person, or is it the person themselves who sees the money coming in all of a sudden and changes their attitude about things?
I think it's both. I think it's both and. Everything is always... Everything is a drama in life or out of life, you know. If you don't hold to the depth of what you believe, someone will take it away from you if you're not strong enough to maintain it.
There has been, this is the last question about Elvis, there has been a lot made that he was a kind of a ladies' man, and he dated a lot of the women in his films. Were you one of the women he dated?
He asked me to go out very clearly. The advice given to me by my grandfather: if you ever get a job and you ever do anything, don't fool around. Wait for your joys after your work is done. I mean, it was something like that. I can't remember exactly the tune he whistled, but it was always, you know, don't mix joy with pleasure. That was the bottom line. And I said to Elvis, I don't think I can go out with you right now because we've got to be up. I have to be up at 5:30 in the morning to get to a makeup call. I'll never do it if I'm out at night dating. You just have to know that's how I feel about it. And he said, I really respect that you feel very serious about this, and I will definitely I will definitely wait, and afterwards we'll see. Well, afterwards he never asked me again.
Reverend Mother, it's kind of unique. What makes your story unique is that you went from acting to being a nun. We learned early on in this interview how you became a nun, but what made you decide to leave acting to pursue this?
Well, Scott, I think it wasn't... If it had been my decision, I would have stayed and married Don and kept my career. I really loved it and really wanted it, but I was taken. I don't know how to express it. It's, I guess the only way I have been able to try to make it sound communicable is when you fall in love. You want to be with a certain person. You want to go with them. You don't care what happens. That's for you. And if it doesn't work, then you go through the heartbreak of it. when I first came to Regina Laudis, it was something like falling in love. I absolutely wanted to be in this place. I was drawn here. It was a magnet. And when I left to go do a film or do something, I couldn't wait until I could come back for a vacation. In the beginning, it didn't occur to me, oh, well, you're going to have to leave and give up your career. In fact, one time I even mentioned to the abbess, Mother Benedict, you don't think I could ever do something like this? And she threw up her hands and said, no, Dolores, you go do your movie thing. That's really the best thing right now. And I was so relieved. I didn't even know how I could have thought about it. But gradually, the realization of life itself and the struggle that we have to be redeemed came to me when I did Lisa, the film with Stephen Boyd in 1962 or 61, about a young woman who had been in Auschwitz. And I had to play a part of a woman who had been a medical experiment in Auschwitz. I couldn't even imagine what I needed to learn, how to understand myself and my body, how to take on a part like this. And a friend of mine introduced me to Suzanne Zada, a girl who had suffered being taken as a young Jewish woman of 14 with her mother. The Nazis had entered their home and taken them. And Suzanne was very open with me, and I think helped me to realize what the implications of something like that were for a woman. And I also then began to ask very deeply, is there any redemption for something like this? Is there any redemption for the fact that all of these Jewish people were killed? And now when we look at our own situation right now, we're seeing the fact that someone could have gassed thousands of people for power. I don't ask to get into politics or to try to figure out how you would change it from that point of view. But I did feel very honestly troubled with what can I do that is significant and will help to bring about redemption in the face of the disasters that our world suffer.
As a nun, as a person of faith, how do you reconcile things of that nature, death, illness, pain? How do you reconcile that to people? Explain that.
Well, I think that the Bible opened that topic up from the very get-go when it opened us to the realization of sin, that God created from a completely different point of view. God who is love, God who is always spoken of as love. If he is our creator, and we believe he is, he created everything out of the love that is within him as in his being. And that love was destined to become something quite different. What makes it different is the reality of sin, the reality of evil, not sin, because sin doesn't come, then it's evil itself. That mystery I can't explain, but I know it exists, because evil does enter into a situation. The children were praying in schools, for example. When they were told not to pray anymore, that's when a man would go into the school and use a machine gun on the children. So I do believe when God is eliminated from a situation, there is another force that wants to dominate the incarnation. And in that domination has no respect for its purity, for its truth, for its goodness, for its meaning.
Reverend Mother, I very serious topic here, and this is kind of maybe an absurd question to follow it up with, but a transition. By all accounts, you were a very good actress. By all accounts, a very good actress. Do you ever regret in the last 50 years, not immediately, after you left the acting profession, 50 years, though, since 1963, have you ever thought, I maybe should have stayed in a little longer, I maybe, if I'd stayed in, I could have become wealthy and given some of that money to the church? Have you ever had a regret when it comes to the acting career?
Well, I've sometimes thought maybe I should leave a card when I die that says, "This is the biggest act I ever played." Benedictine life. I don't know how to answer that question, except that as I have progressed, I've understood that the real art, to me, of acting is listening, is learning to hear what the other one is saying. And when I have seen tragically bad acting, it's always because the actor is thinking about what he or she was going to do or say, rather than respond to the actor or the actress that they were playing with. This was made known to me by Anna Magnani in the second film I made, because in the one scene that I had to play with her, I had never been with an actor who listened the way she did. And taught me that's what it was about.
Do you like movies today?
I love them. I've never stopped loving movies.
Would you be permitted to go do a movie today, and would you do a movie today?
No, I don't think I would, because I don't think you can go backwards. I think you always have to move into a creative way of life that takes you more deeply into your truth, into who you are, into what you are doing. I would never in my life have believed that writing this book would open me to so many communications, have such a possibility of meeting people, greeting people one-on-one. Every place that I've gone, there's been a new discovery of a body of people there. And that I don't think I would ever have, I may not have ever had that even as an actress.
Mm-hmm. When you look back, we just talked about regrets involving the acting career. When you look back at your entire life, do you have any regrets, period?
Oh, golly, would you like to be my confessor?
What's the biggest regret?
I think the biggest regret is my own capacity to move without looking at the bodily reaction or response that is that's in front of me. And I regret in many ways meeting people and not having really understood the issues that were there, not having known what was necessary to be a real servant. What was more important was my own act.
Is this, I don't mean this in any negative way, but because you've said it twice, is being a nun an act in a way for you?
I think that Jesus was the first actor.
Do you think...
Jesus was created to come into the world, to bring forth the message of the body to us. Who is the body that is now the Son of God? His whole gospel, everything that he says, it's the voice of an actor saying, do you understand what's going on? Do you understand the message of this play? Now, when I talk about an actor, I can talk about him as a human being doing a certain script in order to get money, to get a job. But sometimes an actor has to go farther to be who he really or she really is in order to present a message that he believes in. That, in that sense, I can be an actor or an actress when I am a nun. I can also be a nun and have completely thrown away the act and just said, oh, what's it all for anyway?
What would you like to be remembered for? What is your message?
I would just like people to remember my name.
I have to tell you, Reverend Mother, this has been a fascinating conversation because I think you realize as well as we do that your life has certainly been unique. And your answers are very honest, and I certainly appreciate that. And I do want to wrap up with this question because I think the conversation we just had in regard to acting and being a nun is very fascinating. Do you believe the explanation that you just gave about Jesus being the first actor, do you think that would make other people in the religious community or faith-based community angry? Do you think they would agree with you?
Probably not, but I don't imagine that it's... See, I spent a lot of my life trying to say the things that I thought would make people happy, and it didn't make them happy at all because they misunderstood what I was saying. So I finally came to the point, don't try to make someone happy or make someone like you, or don't do anything that is artificial. Just be and do what you really are and think. Say what is in you. If someone can't agree with it, all right, fight me. I don't mind, because somebody will say, well, I think Moses was a better actor, or I think John Paul II was a better actor, or it might even be a Chinese or a Japanese man who was a better actor. I'd love to talk about it.
Did being this honest, even though you faced some negative response, did it make you happy?
Not necessarily. I don't think that you say and do what you feel must be said in order to be happy. You say it in order to keep yourself from losing yourself.
Are you happy today?
No, because I would really love today to be out with the dogs.
Well,
So after we hang up, I'm going to go out and run with them, and maybe that will change my whole response to you. Seriously, though, I'm joking with you now. I love talking with you. It's been a wonderful interview.
Well,
and indeed, it has made me very happy to know you.
Well, I am glad, and I hope maybe we can do this again in the future. The Reverend Mother Dolores Hart. Thank you so much, Reverend Mother. Certainly the story of Mother Dolores Hart is intriguing, interesting, and shows you you're never too old and it's never too late to do whatever you want in life. What an interesting lady. And remember, The Ear of the Heart by Mother Dolores Hart is available where all fine books are sold and on the internet at Amazon.com. We've got to get out of here. The rock and roll is over. The cameras stop rolling. So it's time for me to say, this is Scott Spears, headed for the dugout.